Welcome to the Middlesex Moments Show. I'm Marlene Olson, standing in for Anna Washesa. Joining me today is Artfarm's Executive Director, Dick Wheeler, and Artistic Director, Marcella Trowbridge. They also happen to be the co-founders of Artfarm. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Hi, Marlene. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys could come in on this, what looks like a rainy day again.
Yeah, a little bit, although I hear sunshine is coming.
Oh, there you go. Always the optimist, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about. You guys have such a wonderful life from everything that we see, and most of us wish we were living your life.
No.
So we'll talk a little bit about that too. But first of all, it's the 10th anniversary of Artfarm.
This is true.
That's right, 2001, I think you're incorporated, though both of you have been in theater much longer than that.
Absolutely.
But how did Artfarm come about?
Well, sure. Well, you know, as you said, both Dick and myself, we've been doing this work certainly all of our adult lives, and goes back into our youth. But Artfarm, really came about in 2001. Dick and I had been working together for some time, and we had a vision, and it was conceived in the moment where we first took stage with something called Shakespeare's Argument. It was a small 4-person piece, and we premiered it behind the Middlesex County Historical Society in Middletown, and then it went on to the Levi Co Library in Middlefield. They have a Shakespeare garden, actually, which is quite lovely.
Okay.
And that was our first sort of foray into sharing the work with the community. Again, it was comprised of a small group of professional actors, created around the core of Shakespeare, and then these actors arguing about Shakespeare. And in fact, we, as part of celebrating our 10th anniversary, just remounted a reinvigorated version of that piece, Shakespeare's Argument, for 2011.
That was wonderful, because it was right here at the Grove, Shakespeare in the Grove, and it was for your 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
Very appropriate. The very first one, and on your 10th anniversary, revisited.
Yeah.
Right. There was quite a bit of change between the first one and the first one was probably just under an hour, quite a bit simpler in terms of the staging, and that was one of the things is we really felt that this piece deserved another look. Now that we had our resources were a little greater, and we hired a local playwright, Gene Wirtz, to develop the script a little further.
Because it's an original piece. It's very fast-paced, but definitely an original piece.
And so in the version we did this summer was about 90 minutes long, included more music. Joseph Getter, who's been our musical director for all 6 years of Shakespeare in the Grove, created some new music and also used some classic Shakespeare music, and just turned it into what felt like more of a fully developed, full-length piece from sort of the taster that it had been 10 years ago.
That's wonderful. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, because one of my questions is, why Shakespeare? And I think Shakespeare's Argument is one of those beautiful little pieces that kind of brings in multiple perspectives that gives you an idea why Shakespeare. So we'll be right back after these messages. This is the Middlesex Moment Show. I'm Marlene Olson. Today's guests are Artfarm's Executive Director, Dick Wheeler, and Artistic Director, Marcella Trowbridge. We were talking about the early years of Artfarm, and I wanted to expand on the philosophy. But before we do that, why Shakespeare? And I think your last production of Shakespeare's Argument is kind of an interesting perspective as to what everyone gets from Shakespeare.
Yeah, I think it's true, and I'm certainly, I think, and I can speak for Dick in this as well, that we're both very passionate about the works of Shakespeare. Part of what, in partly answering that, part of what Shakespeare's Argument does, it has 4 characters, the professor, producer, actor, and groundling, and they're all arguing about Shakespeare and how to approach Shakespeare, and in some ways why Shakespeare. The professor says it's about the metrical structure and the literary devices. The producer says it's about the broadswords and the explosions and the spectacle. The actor says it's all about me, and the groundling says, if I don't get it, who cares? And
I think I play the groundling part here.
Most of us do. Most of us
do.
And I think that for me, as an artist and as an arts educator, it feels really important to sort of blow away that mystique. Most of us are exposed to Shakespeare in our earlier years in a way that's often very dry. It's on the page, and it's very daunting because the language is dense. And yet, I've found part of Artfarm's signature style is our commitment to working very physically. And I think if actors embody the text and connect to it emotionally and physically and really know what they're saying and have done the research, then an audience is going to understand what's happening and what's going on. And I feel like again, in Shakespeare's argument, those four characters, as they argue, they then use scenes from Shakespeare's plays to illustrate their points.
Right.
So you do really get the Shakespeare. But again, part of it is all of those things. I think it's coming together of the plot lines, the stories, the interesting characters, the choices people make, good and bad. And again, for me, and what I hope for our audiences is that people get engaged, they get engaged in those stories and those ideas, but then are reflecting on those choices. Gee, that was exciting. Oh, I remember being in love. Or, oh, I've never murdered a king, but I've done things I feel guilty about. I have guilt inside, and really
So
processing
really
as a human being.
get them involved, the human condition. And I
That's
know,
right.
having been in the audience on many occasions, it works. Even the kids are engaged in what's happening in front of them. Even whether it's the physical part or they're actually thinking about it, probably the adults at a little deeper level.
That's right.
But everyone gets something from Shakespeare in the Grove, gets something from the way you perform it. Obviously, it works.
Well, thank you. I feel like, one of the things that you said is that, kids getting it. I think that's such a testament. We've had Shakespeare aficionados, people who've, seen the Royal Shakespeare Company or Stratford, or been to Oregon and seen, really some of the best Shakespeare happening in the world, have been very kind and generous in their comments towards what we do. And then at the same time, I have people who say that their 7-year-old wanted to come again and again, or just kept
A
watching.
7-year-old wanting to come again and again. Okay, being the mother of a 9-year-old, and remembering not too long ago about 7-year-olds, that's amazing.
It is, and also we've also had people who've said, they dragged their teenager there, kicking and screaming, but that teenager stayed engaged and
Right.
was excited about it and maybe wanted to come and bring a friend the next weekend. Those things, to me, are huge. So I love that the scholars and people who love Shakespeare and are passionate about Shakespeare seem to be engaged and enthusiastic, but I love that everybody, it's really important for us to be accessible to everyone, and that taking a little bit of a leap. It's also one of the reasons I think we've been very fortunate in developing a relationship with Middlesex Community College, not only because it's such a spectacular spot, and only when people have actually come to Shakespeare in the Grove in the summer can you actually really understand how magical it is in the Grove.
The Grove is one of those wonderful natural, almost like an amphitheater, where you
Absolutely.
have the backdrop of the evergreens and some lower foliage, but then it goes up a hill and spreads out, so you actually can sit there and enjoy it.
and see naturally.
Bring a picnic,
Yeah.
bring a blanket, bring the kids,
That's right.
and then
That's
come
right.
back more than once.
That's right.
In the river valley
in the river
background,
valley,
you
yeah.
see it behind
The sunset,
stage.
usually, because as you're going towards the conclusion of each of these performances, you also get this dramatic backdrop of nature setting the sun for us. So
Sometimes
don't need
competes a little bit sometimes. So some of the birds
Sure.
and things. We had a couple of years ago. We had a group of geese that flew over pretty much
great.
every night, and the members of the orchestra
On cue.
started marking in their scripts when the geese came over, and they noticed that it was like 3 minutes early, or they kept getting
We're
a
going
little
with the
later
sun.
every day, and they were marking the geese as part of the score.
Everyone participates.
That's right. That's right. Well, and I was going to go back and just in terms of accessibility. So partly it's so beautiful here at the college, but also there's handicap accessibility. There is plenty of parking, and we're on a bus route.
Right,
Which
right.
we really do want people from all parts of the community to be able to have access to high quality art. That feels really important to us. We hope that folks who can afford to give do,
Right.
because it's very difficult to create high quality art in general, but certainly in the current economic climate. But that doesn't lessen our commitment to serving all of the parts of the community, whether you have the dollar or whether you're in a wheelchair or whatever that means. It's very important to Art Farm.
That brings us to the next point, that Artfarm is also about the philosophy of art, the philosophy of living well, the philosophy of including people who normally wouldn't have access to wonderful art.
Well, our mission statement is cultivating high-quality theater with a commitment to simple living, environmental sustainability, and social justice. And we certainly have not only been told, but discovered ourselves, it's a tall order. Those are lofty principles and visions, and sometimes we've been asked, well, how do you merge all of that together? Well, and sometimes we do, and sometimes we do pieces of it. And I think...
Of course. I was sitting here going, what comes to mind is a meaningful life. And we all want to live that, but you guys are actually doing it. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, 9 to 5, run the kids to all the sports events. Right. What is your day like?
We're still running the kids to all the sports
events.
There you
go. Okay, I feel so much better now. They're going to have these lofty goals, but we can still get the kids to the sports events.
There's no question, and maybe Dick, you could speak to that a little bit. There are challenges. We're very blessed to live the life that we choose, but one of the things that became very clear years ago to us is that simple living ain't simple. It's hard work.
Sure. Anyone who's ever put a garden in the backyard, oh yeah, it's going to be all that. No, it isn't.
And we've tried because, our vision from the beginning has been to have a small farm.
Right.
And
Art Farm.
Art Farm, exactly. And that, to convert the barn into a theater and to be able to do residencies and workshops and productions, but also have a working farm.
Right.
And we're still looking for that, and that's, we like to focus on the things that we have rather than what we don't have, and we have a lot of great things happening right now. I think the big missing piece for Art Farm is our own facility.
Right.
That we operate out of a small office in our backyard and our little mini farm with our chickens and our gardens and things like that. But we're still looking for the right place here in Middletown or nearby, hopefully.
Right.
And but we have found that there's a challenge, especially in doing outdoor summer theater, that it happens to be the same time as the planting season. So we usually get a great start off in April and May, and our gardens are fabulous.
I didn't even give that a thought.
Give
That's
tons
right.
of things in there, and then Shakespeare kicks in, and suddenly at the end of July, we're looking at it's like, where did all those big weeds grow up? How did they get
like overnight? Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely. Right. But so we are trying to live our ideals and supporting ourselves in kind of alternative way. But we also still have to, we have 4 children, and they all have needs. They go from 7 to 19, and we're driving
Lots
them
of needs
around
in
all
there.
over the place, and including a Middlesex college student among our 4 children.
There you go.
Well, it's true that again, in balancing, I guess, and I would like to talk, have us talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in terms of the touring shows and residencies and teaching work. But just on that note, in terms of the simple living and sort of trying to carve our path and walk the talk. We are, again, as Dick said, we grow as much food as we can. I do a lot of canning in the fall. I actually really specifically choose not to teach as much in the fall because I'm doing a lot of
harvest time.
It's harvest time.
Right,
I'm putting food by. I'm canning peaches and making applesauce and making jams and things like that. And while in so many ways in our culture, those things aren't necessarily valued. I mean, they, in some ways we look and go, oh, how great, but it's not. At the same time, that's seen as either homey or somehow it's not. Our society right now isn't structured in a way where people can be home parenting, trying to cultivate sustainability, because we are we're sort of in a money culture, and those things aren't linked to much money. None of the things, art and farming, that we do are linked to much money.
So I think we're going to discover more about this in just a few minutes. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. In the final segment of the Middlesex Moment Show, I hope Dick and Marcella give us a glimpse into Artfarm's future.
Sure.
You want to take this one, Dick?
Sure. As I said before, that farm is in our sights, and we've had several kind of close calls, I would say, over the last 5 years as we've been looking. We don't have anything solid right now. We are, talking with one family, but we're still looking for something, and I think, probably a 5 to 10 acre farm.
Right, manageable size.
Manageable size,
right? Lots of gardens in a 5 acre farm.
Oh, absolutely, and we would like to have some livestock. We do have some chickens already, but we'd like to expand into goats. We have a little dream of making goat cheese as well. But, we want to keep doing Shakespeare in the Grove. That's kind of become our signature event. And the other thing that's been really successful for us is our Circus for a Fragile Planet, which is an environmental education circus. And it tours all over Connecticut, and it's been to New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Vermont. And we recently, after touring one show for a couple of years, we just this April opened a show called Submerged, which is all about oceans and water.
Right.
Basically,
a lot of that in the news these days.
Oh, water is just going to be a very big issue over the next couple of decades. And part of why what this show is about is to wake people up to that and create some awareness around how important water is to our survival, both locally and as a species. And what Circus for a Fragile Planet does is it uses circus to make strong environmental messages, and to do environmental education, and to get people to ask questions about what lifestyle changes can they make that will make a difference. What can they do in their community or their school or their family that's going to make a difference to the life of the planet? But we believe that if we have a circus which has dazzling juggling and acrobatics and comedy, that's going to open people up, and they'll be laughing, they'll be they'll be entertained, but that makes them more able to hear the message and want to act on it rather than being kind of lectured at. We get a lot of feedback both from kids and adults about, afterwards, it's like, oh, we stopped buying bottled water, or, we started, using different kind of soaps, and, there's people thinking about what, what goes down their drains and where it goes. Just really important stuff. And so that, we're going to continue to market and tour that show for the next year or so.
So if someone wanted to bring that to their location, to their school, or to their business, how would they go about contacting you?
They can go to our website, which is art-farm.org, or email us at info@art-farm.org. It's like Art Farm hyphenated.
There you go. I can remember that.
And or call 860-346-4390 and talk to us about any of our touring programs or our school residencies. We do a lot of school residencies.
Well, what exactly is a school residency?
Well, that means going into a school for longer than just a 1 or 2 shot deal. Like an extended visit or working with the same group of students. And we do that with circus. We do that with Shakespeare. Sometimes Marcella goes in and does fabulous residencies where she'll create new work with students, usually with high school students. She was at Weaver High School in Hartford last year and created a show called Phoenix Rising with this group of Weaver High School students.
Now, did the students get involved in the production as well, or do they?
They helped write it, they helped craft it, they helped choreograph it, and they perform it. So it's a full, from beginning to a group of students not knowing me, some not knowing each other, taking a leap and doing, sort of trust building work, then developing material that I call through. And
especially if you're going to perform this.
That's right, and piece together. And then, something like that, which is, to me, is some of the really important work that we do, where, again, it's about accessibility, providing access not only to the art, but in a situation like that, giving voice to, in that particular instance, a part of the community that often is unheard. And so to take the risk to tell their stories and get them out there, I think it can be really life-changing. So,
I can well imagine people, especially students, rethinking getting into an art class, maybe in high school, maybe in college, redirecting given the success that they might experience in an endeavor like that.
Right.
One, the trust building that you mentioned.
Right.
The other one, the positive reinforcement that they could do it,
That's
did
right.
do it.
That's right. I think that's something that theater provides, and this is the theater educator in me speaking, is that, in a nutshell, you have to have personal responsibility. You have to have commitment to a group. You have to have goal setting and follow through. You have to have effective communication, and those are life skills. That is what's going to hold a marriage together, keep you in a job, whether you do arts or not as your career. Ultimately, Dick and I strive for high quality work so that, people that we work with, if they are interested in the arts, they are developing those skills. But ultimately, it's about human beings and development. And again, I think that theater is an incredible tool for curricular and life skill acquisition. So that's my soapbox.
I can't imagine anyone not being inspired by that. and teenagers are hard to reach, but I can see you doing that too. I've seen you do some of your one-person acts. You're very good.
Thank
you.
you.
Excellent, am I saying?
Well, it's very kind. And I think, again, I think that having Dick as an educator here at Middlesex as well is for me, Dick wouldn't say this because he's pretty humble, but I've had the opportunity to come in to his classes sometimes and do, a little Shakespeare snippet or something with some of the Middlesex students, and it's a gift to be able to have this caliber of work available and accessible again to the community college community. So we feel.
So you're
privileged.
an adjunct professor here at the college teaching theater.
That's right. I think this is maybe my 6th year, maybe 7th. I'm not sure. But in that time, it's grown from 1 class to 3 that are offered now at Middlesex in the theater department, as it were. It's not quite a department, but it gets its own little listing in the catalog.
The future. That's right.
That's right. Here we are, the future. So do a lot of these students end up entering into your summer production of Shakespeare?
Some of them get involved backstage. I think we've had one student that was on stage.
Our first year.
That's right, in A Midsummer Night's Dream. But several of them will help either with front of house or working on backstage crew.
All important things.
And we've had work study students and interns, so there are lots of ways to get involved. And in many ways, and generally in the community, there are lots of ways to get involved in terms of doing front of house, or sometimes we get bookkeeping help where we can use all the help we can get. And again,
well, because that's where I was going to go next with this, and we've talked a little bit about the residencies. You also have workshops, the biobus, and retreats. And then as you get into opportunities, obviously the auditions, working behind the scenes, volunteering, internships. What's the biobus? What is that all about?
Well, this is several years ago. We purchased an old school bus, a half bus, a short bus, and basically created a biodiesel processor at our home. So we take waste vegetable oil.
They're scientists as well.
Take waste vegetable oil and turn it into biofuel.
Now, where do you get the waste vegetable oil? Do you go
Collect
to
from
local
restaurants on Main
and
Street?
Like that?
Yeah,
Sure.
and we've been helped out lately by Hale Hill Biofuels, which is a person that they sell commercial biofuels, and they've been giving us some of their kind of leftover stuff that they can't sell commercially, which has taken some pressure off me in terms of having to make the stuff all the time, because it is a messy business.
And harder in colder weather. You really,
that's
it's
right.
too thick to make it.
Do you have to filter it and that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah.
Get all the fries out of it?
Well, exactly. You add, methanol and lye, and it goes through a warming processor and a drying tank and a washing tank. And so it's a fairly long, it's a lot of work, but we didn't want to necessarily just be driving around on diesel when we're touring around all over the place, and wanted to be modeling what we're talking about. So
and there we are.
So we're doing that. But I would say that right now we're really, our focus this year is really on the land, and it's like we're just feeling like we're getting to the point as an organization where the key thing is finding an identifiable home, a place that people can say, oh, that's where Artfarm is, and let's go to Artfarm for see play tonight, or take a workshop, or watch that Charlie Chaplin series they're doing.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap this up. This has been the Middlesex Moment Show, a weekly broadcast from Middlesex Community College, highlighting both the college community and all the communities that we serve. Visit us on the web at mxcc.comnet, that's with 2 M's, .edu. I'm Marlene Olson, wishing you a good day.